Today, we're tackling a critical question facing enterprises everywhere. Why is 85% of enterprise AI stalling and only a fraction are able to scale? Well, it's because elevating ROI requires more than just trust governance or access to powerful models. It requires engineering velocity. Welcome back to the Next Frontiers of AI podcast, where we explore the innovations, the strategies, and the real-world stories shaping the future of enterprise AI. Our mission is quite simple: to help you all, both business and technology leaders, stay one step ahead of where AI is heading. Because in this market, if you fall behind, you may never fully catch up. I'm your host, Scott Hebner, Principal Analyst for AI at theCUBE Research. Thanks so much for tuning in. So enterprises are pouring billions into AI. They're chasing the promise of agentic AI in the golden age of digital labor. Yet most are trapped in what today's guest calls the AI velocity trap, where early gains create a false sense of progress, only to see real enterprise ROI stall. And the problem is not the models, it's an execution crisis. Too many are focused on the foundation models while overlooking the real competitive battleground, which is building a layered architecture that operationalizes AI across very complex and ever-changing business environments. And history offers a powerful parallel. Over 30 years ago, the browser wars of the internet age, where, if you recall, and if you were around back then, what browser you selected determined the viability of your company. But in the end, the browser became just a gateway into the world of the internet, a preference at best. The leaders of the e-business era built around those gateways to the internet to really lead in their segments. Today, LLMs are becoming similar gateways, this time into the world of AI. As such, competitive advantage will belong to enterprises that build the highest velocity execution architectures around those foundation models. So in this episode, we'll unpack the AI velocity trap, why so many remain stuck in pilot purgatory, and what separates those that are truly scaling ROI, and what a winning architecture looks like. Joining me today is Nitesh Bansal. He's the CEO of R Systems. Nitesh brings a unique frontline perspective on how enterprises can move beyond experimentation and trust frameworks alone to operationalize engineering velocity as a true strategic advantage. So Nitesh, let me bring you up here. I thank you so much for taking your time to be here. I think this is going to be a fascinating conversation.
So thank you, Scott. Really a pleasure to be here with you today. And clearly the topic and the way you laid it out, I'm sure it's going to be extremely exciting to discuss the nuances.
Yeah, I tell you, when we talked a little bit in the past, if through all my engagements and all the survey work I've looked at, including yours that we'll get into here, if there was one word I would use to define the state of enterprise AI, it's the word trust. And that is what, in part, is slowing the scaling of ROI. But you bring in another element that is what delivers trust. Mm-hmm. So I've been focused on the higher level, but if you peel that onion reel back again, I think what you're going to talk about today kind of gets you into how to deal with that, right? And how to really get to scale. So it's going to be a great conversation. So I tell you what, so let's just get started just for our audience. Just give us a little bit about, your journey to where you are now as the CEO of R Systems and what you guys actually do to help your clients.
Well, in short, Scott, my journey is very simple. Started in the tech industry almost now 29 years ago. Started with a large global SI, spent 25 years with them, managing a large part of their portfolio P&Ls across the world. And during that time, I've seen the journey go from mainframes to client-server architectures to distributed systems, ERPs, virtualization of data centers, and then IoT and coming in of AI. So I've seen that whole technology wave and technology curve and the adoption cycles across enterprises. And I was smiling when you mentioned the browser wars and every time we've gone through those kind of things. It is history does give us a lesson how we all get excited about the tools first and the capability that the tools offer and how they can be utilized in our daily environments. But eventually it all becomes about people and how people are able to leverage the tools for the right kind of use cases to deliver the right kind of returns. So that's been my journey over at that global SI, and then after a while, of course, I got headhunted into Blackstone, into our systems, where we are a global product engineering company. We work with a lot of tech ISVs and platforms, especially SaaS and vertical SaaS platforms, doing product development work for them. And in that journey, over the past 24 months, it's actually fundamentally been about implementing AI, embedding AI into products and tools, taking the power of AI and putting it into customer experiences, and using AI to deliver those things in a much faster and accelerated manner. And that has been a treasure trove of learning, because we are learning and gaining knowledge as AI itself is maturing. And never in the past have we had a technology which is so far ahead of its on capability front that we are actually finding use cases or users that we can apply it to. It's a common saying, necessity is the mother of invention. Here, I think we are for the first time seeing a reverse phenomena where inventions are running ahead of people discovering the necessity for it. And that's probably part of the reason why we create a trust angle, right, or a trust deficit, because the promise out there is so big, and the reality on the ground that people face sometimes does not measure up to it. But last 3 years, leading our systems and building this core competence of being an AI first company, and that's where we are.
Yeah, to your point, I mean, there's no doubt that enterprises are investing aggressively in AI, but the truth of the matter is, and there's multiple studies out there on this, that most of these initiatives are stalling before delivering meaningful ROI to the business. And so why don't we start here a little bit on your perspectives, both in the engagements that you have directly with your clients, but as well as I know your new survey work. So why don't you take the engagements first and then talk a little bit about the survey? Because I think to your point about learning what's happening is so critical for all of us.
Absolutely, Scott. So based on the engagements we've had over the course of last 24 months, obviously traversing with our clients on their journey of exploring what AI can do for them, what we have seen is most of the times, these days, the initiatives start up in an organization because somebody at the top has either heard or been asked to kind of point to what they are doing in AI, right? Or they've heard that others are using AI and they should be doing that too. And in that rush of fear of missing out, if you may call it, initiatives get started off, because as initiatives get started off, first trying to prove what can AI be used for. And what they're usually missing is an objective statement, a clear direction of what we should try and achieve and hence apply AI for. And hence, in many cases, it remains a science experiment without a defined target, ROI, or objective to be achieved. Because even if you are successful, you've not established a metric to prove to yourself what success means, then very soon you lose way, right? And so we've seen that happen across clients. Also, the second thing that we've seen, which is a common challenge across enterprises, you start off on an AI initiative trying to essentially automate or accelerate your existing value chain and existing set of processes, not reimagining it with an AI lens. And then what you end up doing is you're putting an elephant to pull a baby cart, and eventually prove the obvious that it's ROI negative, right? And those, I think people have learned over time. We have been constantly educating our clients in those directions. And you mentioned the survey. We actually conducted a survey across over 200 organizations in the mid-market segments, which is where we operate. And we find the survey results to pretty much speak to the same. Almost 55 to 57% organizations doing those experimentations, piloting in various ways, but hardly 15% really getting them into productive deployments. And the gap being that whether they had a direction of what they wanted to achieve, whether the ROI was defined, whether the autonomy of the workflows was well captured. The other thing that we notice is that a lot of companies have actually taken this opportunity to leapfrog. Instead of going from doing some bit of ML and classical AI to generative AI and then doing agentic. actually leapfrogging directly from what I would call advanced analytics and classic ML to straight agentic use cases. And it has both its pros and cons in the learning curve and readiness of the organization versus achieving an ROI faster.
Yeah, and I think one of the notions of agentic AI is that, that's why I like that chart, is that agentic AI, to be successful with agents and workflows, and I know you're going to get into this, you can't have an LLM only architecture. I mean, that's the analog to having a browser only architecture, right? And so we'll definitely get into all that stuff. But let me show you a findings from our agentic AI futures index, and this was 625 enterprise AI leaders,
Right.
And we have an index methodology. And basically, what we found was there's a high degree of aspiration, and that goes to the aggressive investment that we're seeing. And I think that we're all seeing, and they feel good about the strategy and where they are and what they need to do. So I'll make that sort of yellow, somewhere in the middle of the index. But look where the execution is, right? And I think that's a big part of your point here. And almost 60% are basing what they're doing on the public AI models like ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or whatever. And to achieve below, get enterprise-wide adoption and all that, you got to do much more than just have.
Absolutely. No, this is great actually, and a much bigger sample set, and pretty much points to the similar kind of things that it is not the tools, it's the execution where the focus needs to be.
Yeah. So why don't let's talk about this AI velocity trap that you've been talking about, and define for our audience what exactly you mean by that and why so many organizations are falling into it. And I created from some of the graphics you had, I created a graphic of it, which I'll bring up here for everyone just to kind of take a look at as you talk.
Beautiful. No, thanks, Scott. Thanks for asking that, because we believe that the gap between achieving ROI with AI or not achieving it really lies in the velocity with which the AI gets implemented. And most of it, of course, is whether you're going towards automating a business value function or you're actually doing writing of code or modernization of code. Underlying it is a certain amount of engineering with AI that you do to achieve the outcomes. So we actually translate it into engineering velocity, right? And what we say is the AI velocity trap is there is a promise that everybody believes in, and I'm not negating that, I'm saying that's true, is that AI is a highly capable and very enabling technology. And eventually everybody can learn it and everybody can finally arrive at a desired outcome. But the loops and the hoops that one has to go through to arrive at that outcome will take a certain amount of time, a certain amount of effort, learning and doing, which may not be commercially viable for every organization. And hence, what happens is that because of that promise and availability of the technology, most times organizations fall in what we call this AI velocity trap, where they will start off initiatives within the organization, have a small team, very fast moving, forward looking team, have access to the tools and say, okay, try out what you can achieve. And what they will get in the first go is that 10, 15, 20% benefits, which is great, but then it probably stops over there. And then the natural outcome of the thing is, oh, we are not getting real gains, right?
Right.
And then people will take a lot of time to actually build those guardrails and those kind of security policies and the frameworks by which this AI can be used within an organization. And that will eat away the ROI because it has taken so much time. And we have to fundamentally remember, while what the frontier model companies or tech companies promise as 8x velocity, 10x 10x productivity and all are all true, but perhaps in greenfield environments, whereas 95% of what we deal with on everyday basis is actually brownfield. We are not going to be working outside the context of an enterprise. And to make that brownfield ready, make that enterprise ready, to make that ROI ready, what we need is really to prepare AI for that work and have the people who understand how to use AI to deliver those outcomes. I always say it's fundamentally not a tools problem. It is a people's problem. The tools are the same commercially available tools, but these are not just the frontier models. These are the work that has to be done on top of the frontier models in order to make it apply to the use cases and the enterprises to produce the ROI. And that's where we came out with our 5-layered cake and how we actually make it happen.
Yeah, and we'll definitely get into layered cake here in a second. But as I kind of mentioned up front, a lot of focus today on AI trust and governance, right? And as you mentioned, model capability. But I think, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think part of your argument is, in some ways, those are table stakes. Those are things you need to do. You have to have the trust. You have to have the governments. You obviously have to have the models. But that the engineering velocity is actually emerging as the bigger determinant of whether an enterprise is going to be successful or not. Is that a way of summarizing?
You are absolutely right. The establishment of security, trust, guardrails, compliances is non-negotiable, because, and not only that, behind that, auditability, explainability, and traceability of exactly what went about, how did the AI arrive at a particular decision point, what kind of decisions were taken, what kind of variables were available. All of that goes in, because we would be talking about some highly regulated industries and processes that could be fairly critical for a variety of reasons, right? So establishing all that is non-negotiable. And then beyond that, it is really about using it in the right manner. And it's really not about which frontier model or which LLM gets used, but how it is kind of built to be used within the enterprise.
Right. So let's go to your enterprise cake, your 5 layers, right?
Yeah.
And again, I took the liberty here to create a chart. So why don't you talk through this, because it certainly makes a ton of sense to me and impressive, right? I mean, I think you've clearly have thought this through of what enterprises need to do. So kind of explain that for us and sort of how it relates to what you provide.
Now, thanks for putting the picture together. And as you see, Exico is our AI studio where we bring the people and the technology together to deliver the outcomes. And I again want to emphasize, this is not about tools, because tools are the same commercially available tools that everybody uses, but conditioning them and preparing all the reusable assets and layers that need to be put in place to be used in an enterprise, so that we don't waste that time and ultimately deliver that engineering velocity. What is non-negotiable is this unified governance. The guardrails, the acceptable use policies, the security frameworks, the role-based access policies, the whole compliances, etc. All of which need to be built, but you don't need to build them every time. 70-80% of this can be reused, fine-tuned for a particular enterprise, and you can get immense amount of engineering velocity right from day one, because these were available to you. The connectors, well, a lot of when you're working in a brownfield environment, you have to work with the existing tools, the Jira, the Git, the Confluence, the variety of data stores and others. And while a lot of them publish standard MCP connectors, the MCP itself needs to be bound by a role-based access and governance mechanism applicable to the company or to the enterprise or to the industry. And that's where brownfield connectors come into play. If you have a library of those available where role-based access can be implemented, other guardrails can be implemented, gives you more engineering velocity. We have a very eval-first mindset. So having prompt libraries, the evals frameworks, the methods, the data sets available for them creates huge amount of acceleration. Putting FinOps and context engineering in place, because one of the important areas, which is what the CFOs are concerned about, is I implement AI and very soon this becomes a monster that I have to feed. The token consumption goes out of control. The amount of cost it is incurring is out of control. Really putting not just evals from an outcome perspective, but evals from FinOps and context engineering perspective makes it viable for the enterprise to use. And then, of course, industry specific and company specific, whatever models that have to come in place. And this is really the 5-layered cake, as we call it, where with a significant amount of reuse, anywhere from 40 to 80% reuse, we create that multiplier effect on engineering velocity that delivers the ROI.
Yeah, so let's kind of make this real for everybody and like bring it to life. And when I was doing some of the research preparing for this, the Spreedly story that you guys have been talking about was quite striking, right? 16 months down to 9 weeks. So talk to us a little bit about what specifically enabled that kind of acceleration, because I think that's the engineering velocity that you're talking about. And what should all of us learn from that?
Well, in short, just to give a background of the case, Spreedly is a payments platform. It's a SaaS company which offers from multiple payment gateways to multiple payment gateways, many to many kind of payment linkages, and process those payments from small companies, small enterprises to very large companies, all taken together. And they had this unique problem as the platform is growing. All these reports about payments and how much payment is processed and what it costed, etc. The report consumption kept on increasing, and the reports were based on a proprietary technology which costed them money, and they wanted to then move it to open source so that they can save that money because report usage is going up. Being a tech platform company, they had their own evaluation of what will it take to migrate all these reports, which are on everyday use, to be migrated to this open source. And they had this 9-month kind of an estimate that it would take to kind of do. And that included use of AI. But then, of course, being a very practical platform engineering team, they knew that they will have to put these guardrails, these connectors, and all of these things in place, plus write the agents that will do the work. When we took on the challenge, we took it on with an 8-week challenge deadline, saying we'll do it in 8 weeks, no 9 months. And what we did was, of course, ready-made connectors and guardrails and all the compliances for banking financial services that got implemented. That took hardly a matter of days to configure. And we have agent templates and industry templates on which agents can be built very fast. And we use that to build the agents out in 2 weeks, another 2 weeks for evals and tightening of the agents and evaluating the outcomes. And then it was a matter of clear 4 weeks of run in just converting all the reports, migrating them to the new architecture, and the agents themselves spinning up the test cases, testing them out, creating the exceptions, providing the fixes, and with the human in the loop, making sure every step was validated. There was no hallucination. Everything was human verified and then passed through. And we got 100% outcome.
Yeah. It's impressive. It really is. Because
I mean, that's the power of what AI can do today. It's scary sometimes, but done properly, it's very powerful.
Right. And like you said, it's a people sport.
It is.
It's an organizational, sport, if anything, teamwork and all that stuff, probably like no other technology in the past. So given the layer cake and the example we just went through, you were saying in your survey, 6 in 10 are stuck in this pilot purgatory. 2 in 10 or 15% or so are able to scale autonomous work scales with meaningful ROI. What is the bottom line difference there that an organization, any executives listening, what is the thing to focus on?
So if I were to play it out in easy, simple 5 steps of what people should focus on and what makes the difference, number one, as we have learned from the survey, is really define the objectives. Have a very clear case defined of what you want to achieve, have the ROI determined. Otherwise, there is no way of knowing whether you're in the right path or not. Number two, when you look at, after you define the objectives, when you look at the underlying value chain, reimagine the value chain in an AI-first manner. It's no longer valid to just imagine the same sequence of steps, same things happening with AI, right? Number three, the mistake that a lot of people do when they actually think of a AI-first value chain, they go too far out thinking they should be completely autonomous. There is nothing called completely autonomous. You must design for human in the loop. Right. It must be designed for human in the loop because we have seen even models which provide us 99.98% eval accuracy will show a drift over time because the models learn. And human in the loop is important to prevent model drift, is to make sure that model corrections happen. So anyway, so ROI, then design for AI first, design for human in the loop, then adopt the eval first methodology, so you get the evals in place. And then comes the question of what AI to choose, right? And then, of course, having the right team and the right partner to kind of build it out. So that is, according to me, what makes a difference in getting AI productive and delivering value versus we being lost in that, pilot purgatory and continuing to seek that outcome that we were trying to get.
Yeah, and I think one of the key takeaways, certainly that's come to life to me, and not just preparing from this, but having this conversation, is that selecting a foundation model or a collection of foundation models is clearly important, but the real value in the sustained ROI over time and competitive advantage is going to come from these execution architectures, as if that's the right term, where you build around and on top of the core models, right? And you infuse real human beings into it. It's an organizational viewpoint, not just an individual viewpoint. So that's what I'm taking away from it. And given that, and I think that's what you're calling the AI velocity trap, right? Is if you get part of the notion here is if you get overly obsessed on these foundation models, which may, kind of commoditize over time, or at least become a preference like the browsers did 30 years ago. You need to step beyond that now if you're really going to pull ahead. So given that, assuming I summarized that correctly, what is the number one thing that people should do that are listening in to kind of get started with this, and how to get with you or learn more about what our systems is doing?
Well, for people getting started with this, should definitely look at areas which have the highest impact for their organization. Whether it is customer service, whether it is the core of the business that they are in, and which are computation heavy or people and process heavy, and reimagine that with an AI first mindset. We can obviously help customers do that. Our Exico Studio offering is about bringing the right people with the tools to evaluate those scenarios, to evaluate the AI readiness of the organization, and get their data in place. Because in all this discussion, we didn't talk about data, but then ultimately we must realize that for every dollar being spent on AI, there is 60 to 70 cents being spent on data underlying that AI. And that's another important foundational aspect that people should focus on, and something that we always advise our customers and help them kind of build up towards.
That's awesome. And everyone should go visit rsystems.com, correct? Or is it .ai?
That's right. No, .com and exico.ai, which is the Exico Studio website.
Yeah, it's really impressive stuff. I've been through it in detail. I recommend everyone go take a look. So Nitesh, thanks so much for being here. This has been an incredibly insightful discussion. And, the thing that I'm certainly going to think a lot more about is the real differentiator is this notion of the engineering velocity. And I've been sort of obsessing on AI trust and governance, but you're right, that is a part of the journey. But ultimately, you got to get to this extended architecture that's going to allow you to have the velocity. So definitely
completely agree with you. Engineering velocity can deliver to the trust equation. Trust has to be built by design, and if we have made sure that all our security process policies are taken care of, the CISO is happy. That's the first level of trust building. And second is obviously you have to walk the talk, deliver the ROI. And that's only the second way of building trust in the technology we're bringing in. But thank you so much for having me on the show today. It's been a great discussion.
You bet. And we all need to go make sure we don't fall into the AI velocity trap. It's a great term.
Absolutely.
And thanks again for being here. It's always great to talk with you. And to our audience, thank you again for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe, share, and stay with us as we continue exploring what's shaping the future of enterprise AI. Until next time, I'm Scott Hebner. Stay curious, stay critical, and stay ahead of the next frontier of AI. We will see you on the next round. Thanks again, everyone, for being here.